It was a novella written by Truman Capote, and we optioned the rights, took them into Paramount. So we started what is usually called in the entertainment industry development hell and started developing the screenplay.
I love the screenplay, but I've loved a lot of screenplays that haven't made it. So I wasn't foolish enough to make that a part of my consideration for doing it or not. I would have done it if I had to crawl all the way up the Walk of Fame, you know. That was a big opportunity for me.
Audrey was under contract to Paramount. We just thought she would be wonderful in it. Paramount didn't think she would play it because she was such a kind of sweet and proprietary kind of lady that they didn't think she would play a part where a woman gets $50 to go to the powder room.
Certainly in her mind, and understandably so, it was a big jump from the Capote Holly Golightly to our film's Holly Golightly, and she just didn't know whether she could do that sort of thing.
I thought she did a wonderful job. I liked it because she was very naive, and it was like playing against that character. And I think that's what it takes to play that part and get away with it, you know?
I just told her I thought she would be absolutely great, not to expect her to be the Holly Golightly of Truman's book.
I don't even want to own anything until I can find a place where me and things go together. I'm not sure where that is, but I know what it's like. It's like Tiffany's.
You mean the jewelry store?
That's right. I'm crazy about Tiffany's.
Truman Capote originally visualized Marilyn Monroe in the part, and she probably would have been allowed to play the character as he had created her in the book, but they unfortunately wouldn't let Audrey do that.
You kind of would have expected Marilyn, who, you know, was very sexy, she was kind of obvious for the part, and so we thought we could do better. And when Audrey said she would do it, even though Paramount didn't think she would, that's how we got her.
I don't think that the majority of the audience in those days really ever thought of Audrey Hepburn as a hooker, as a call girl. I bet you they didn't even, when it was over with, they didn't even know. So $50 for the powder room? So she was an escort lady.
I found myself wishing that she could have done the part as written. People didn't know how earthy and how true to life Audrey was, how aware she was of whatever went on in the world.
But she took something which was one way and turned it completely into something else, up to the point that people forget what the film is really about. She was scared and happy and funny and delightful and spunky and emotional and solid.
Audrey Hepburn was a gift from God. I mean, she just was the loveliest, most gracious, darling, darling lady.
And I think it's a film that she's become so identified with. It's become a classic. When you talk of Audrey Hepburn, the first thing you think of is Breakfast at Tiffany's.
The first day of the film, we were shooting the first scene in the movie, which is when the taxi cab pulls up to the curb in front of Tiffany's at 57th and 5th Avenue.
Came the time to shoot, and it was as though God said, well, I'm going to give you a break now, but for the rest of your career, you're just going to have to live off of this one. And nobody appeared. No cars, no people. It was suddenly deserted. With the sweep of his hand, you know, C.B. DeMille wiped out the whole traffic situation, and we had our shot.
Do you mind if I just get in with you for a minute? It's all right. Really it is. We're friends, that's all. We are friends, aren't we?
George had a great physical presence. I think it worked well for the two, because he still had a lot of that innocence that I think made it attractive to her.
We liked each other as human beings. He admired me greatly, I found out, as a director, and what I did in that film. And I didn't want him in the movie. If you would ask me, and I hope you don't, that, would I cast him now? I doubt I would. He just didn't have whatever it was that I wanted. He wasn't my cup of tea, and yet I loved him. We had great times.
Well, I want to tell you, I'd worked with him at the Actors Studio, and we'd gotten along superbly. I really loved him. I mean, he was divine to me and flirted with me, and it was so good, And I was so thrilled to be doing this film with him. Well, he had been spoiled, and he wanted things as he wanted them. And I had dominated him a lot more in the script. And he didn't want to be seen in that condition.
I'll tell you what, Paul. I am a very stylish girl.
What are you doing?
Writing a check. Don't look so bewildered. Surely you've noticed me writing checks before. You're entitled to a vacation with pay.
We wanted somebody who was no nonsense, who could play that kind of, strong, subterranean sexual role, which is what she does. And I don't recall we ever had any problem getting her to play the part because she was a fan of Audrey's, and it was a very good role.
You're Holly's father?
Her name ain't Holly. She was Lula Mae Barnes. Was till she married me. I'm her husband, Doc Golightly.
What can you say about Buddy? Buddy is Buddy. He's an old vaudeville hoofer. It was a brilliant bit of casting.
I don't know whether Buddy Ebsen was Blake's idea or whether it was the casting director's idea, but, I remember he came and read the scene that they play on the part. We just heard, 5 lines, and we all knew that was right.
Mr. Golightly, once again, I must protest. If you don't stop with that phonograph right this minute, I'm going to go to the police department. Yeah, well, that's more better.
In spite of the fact that Blake was a very good friend of Mickey Rooney's, I don't think you would ever have cast Mickey Rooney to play a Japanese person. You'd have had a real Japanese actor, and I don't mind saying that at one point I wanted to replace him.
I didn't really think it out, and I'm not sure I would have changed my mind anyway. And certainly at that time when I did it, nobody criticized it. I thought it was perfectly okay. Looking back, I wish I had never done it.
Not my favorite part. Though I do, as I say, I think Mickey's a wonderful, wonderful actor.
And I would give anything to be able to recast it. But it's there, and onward and upward.
So, my darling Fred, I have tonight made a very serious decision.
And what is that?
No longer will I play the field.
Congratulations.
The field stinks, both economically and socially.
Audrey and I specifically never had a disagreement that I can remember. People would advise Audrey, and we would rehearse one night, and she'd come back the next day and do something totally different. And I finally took her aside and said, hey, there's only one director. He may not be the best, but that's what you got. And you either go along with what we agree on together, or you got to get another director. And that it changed right then. And she relied on me from that moment on. It was easy to spot what she was doing. And she was some kind of spectacular lady.
I'll buy a drink. You drink? Yeah. I'll buy a drink. Okay.
George Axelrod wrote the brilliant script, but the cocktail party was pure Blake Edwards.
He called me one day and he said, I'm going over to the set because I'm going to do this crazy party sequence, and I'm just going to play around and see what I can use.
The script itself didn't delineate that much in terms of party shenanigans. And that meant that I was going to have to invent it.
But we just walked around seeing what kind of crazy madness we could create. They had the one thing where he was on the floor crawling to get the telephone that was ringing that was in a suitcase, things like that.
Actually, in the party sequence, a lot of it was choreographed, I think, as they went along.
And I ordered up champagne, and we had a party. And I told him that. I got him around, and I said, you know, now you're going to help me out. See if you can come up with stuff. And knowing actors, and everybody was going to come up with something at that point, and did. And out of that, I selected a lot of stuff. It led me into a lot of stuff that I thought was fun and creative.
I remember that he would walk by me and he'd say, what am I going to do with you? And about the second or third day, he comes by and he said, I know. He said, you're always laughing, so I'm going to put you in front of a mirror and you can laugh your head off.
Then he dreamed up a crazy thing with another actor, and he said, why don't you two, I'm going to do a big close-up, and you two be arguing. And he didn't tell us what about. And in the middle of our argument, he pulls up the patch and didn't need it, so it was just kind of a crazy moment.
And then, 2 or 3 days later, he said, you know, by now I think she might have a crying jag. I said, yeah. And he said, okay, go for it.
And we really just had a party. Had it been otherwise, I think it would have taken 2 weeks. And it didn't take anything like that.
You heartbreaker, wherever you're going, I'm going your way too.
Well, I was really quite amazed that she was able to pull that off. I didn't know she sang. Nobody knew.
See the world, there's such a lot of world to see.
When I saw the film for the first time with an audience, we were in preview, and the head of the company then said, well, I'll tell you one thing, we can get rid of that song. Fortunately, Audrey stood and said, over my dead body,
Huckleberry friend, moon, river, and me.
One of my favorite scenes is the last scene, you know, with the cat.
Phew, boy, did that cat smell. Get that cat wet, and that's not easy when you've got the lights pouring down on you and you can hardly breathe anyway, and then you bring the cat in and she's got it in the rain and right up her nose. It was awful.
What makes it still an important movie is, I think, it's the romanticism of the film and the relationship, and when Audrey is the most vulnerable, and when George Peppard talks to her, when she's going to run away, that last scene in the taxi, and then when she goes and finds the cat, and they're all hugging in the rain. I'm an old romantic, I guess, but that's my favorite part of the picture.
It just gets into your soul, gets into your heart, may even get into your tears.
I don't think there would be anyone that could ever follow Audrey Hepburn in any role, because, I mean, she was unique.
She always had a spark of humor and be able to deliver that kind of kooky little attitude. But it's a movie everybody can identify with. I think a lot of people have that kookiness, whether they let it show or not, you know. I think a lot of people wanted to be Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Because she had a way of showing us who she really was. She really made you look into her soul. And you see it whether she played a princess or a nun or a flower girl or Holly Golightly.
She just had a grace and a beauty and a charm that I can't think of anyone else like her. And yet with it, there was a sweetness and a vulnerability. She was just delightful.
What was she really like? And the lovely answer is that she really was like what you saw on the screen. She really was that way.
I think that movie was made like a classic. I really think that everything Blake does becomes a classic.
I got real lucky. I like to think that I added a lot to those things, like the party. That certainly wasn't written the way I shot it. And so we complemented each other, everyone, kind of.
I think at the end of the day, the picture is famous not so much because of what Audrey was as a human being, but because she represented something that I think women care about.
It's kind of movies like they don't make anymore. I think that's part of its magic for today as well. And we should make more films like that.